Please welcome back Richard Kelly. So I gotta say, it's just such a thrill to have this opportunity to talk about this movie with you right now. This film opens up so many questions, and what's amazing about it is that when you watch it in 2026, it feels even richer than it did in 2001 in terms of the questions that it's asking. And so, if we're to journey back in time to when you originally kind of conceived of this concept, you were inspired by a newspaper story you read about a piece of ice that fell off a plane. Really, really interesting backstory.
Yeah.
But the movie raises all these interesting questions about, what's real, what's not real. When you first sort of conceived of the idea, how much did you know, basically, of what you were conceiving of in terms of the questions it raises? How much of the mysteries did you know the answers to?
I say I probably had like the skeleton of the whole thing, because as I've said a lot in over the years in interviews, there was this story of a teenage kid in somewhere in the suburbs in Richmond, Virginia, who a piece of ice fell on his bedroom, and he was like at baseball practice or something, and came home, and his bedroom had been destroyed by this piece of ice. And I thought, wow, what a crazy thing to happen, and what would that do to a teenager's mental state, maybe developmental state, to have this sort of thing fall out of the sky, and then but you weren't there, and what would that what if that's a conceit for a film in a way? And so I had not yet written a feature-length script, and I had just graduated from USC, and everyone has that freak out extended period after they graduate from college where they're like, now what? What are you going to do? What are you going to do for a career? And so it was in the middle of all that I focused all that anxiety and energy in my film degree, and it's like I have to solve the mystery of this piece of ice from this story I remember from growing up, and then the piece of ice became a jet engine, and I knew I had to solve the mystery of where the engine came from. So it all just really happened in like a month, the same period of the movie. Is my microphone doing? I'm sorry. You can hear me? Okay. It was the same time period of the movie. That was 28 days. I literally started the script beginning of October, and I finished it right around Halloween. So I was like living in that tangent universe sort of 28-day time frame when I was writing it. And it just sort of, the puzzle pieces started connecting. Like everything started connecting in a way where like this leads to that, and this plot point, and Grandma Death, and Jim Cunningham, and Kitty Farmer, and all these characters sort of converge in a way where it was like, I don't know, my brain just mapped out the journey, and a lot of it just it came together very organically, and I was drawing all these things from my childhood and putting everything that I had into it as like a 23-year-old just out of college and everything. So it was just putting all 23 years of my life experience into this screenplay that I felt was like, this is what I got to try to do as my first movie.
What's really striking about it is that there's so many elements that feel like they resonate now, even more so. The kind of conspiracy theory component of it,
Yeah.
The political divisions that infiltrate American households. Even the way that it deals with mental health is quite fascinating. And there is a whole reading of this movie that I know some people have where they basically just see it through that prism of it's entirely, about mental health. And I'm curious about how you feel about that, because there are also, with the philosophy of time travel, underpinnings of legitimate sci-fi concepts. And the way you talk about this movie is that, everything that Donnie's going through is real.
Well, yeah, real in the sense that the dream has like an architecture to it, and that everything in the dream world, as I kind of see it, whether it's a parallel universe or not, is sort of scripted in a way, maybe because I wrote the script, but it's in terms of like predestination, and you see the things, the celestial fluid growing out of people's chests. The idea that Donnie is seeing the script of reality in a way, and he's sort of being let in on it. that all this stuff is happening for a reason, and the sort of design of this sequence of events that results in his mother going, getting on the plane and Sparkle Motion and the car accident, and Halloween night and all those events sort of converging, that it's sort of this orchestrated sequence of events, I guess. And so I kind of look at it all as a big science fiction narrative. And there's obviously, themes of mental illness and all the anxiety of being a teenager and all the emotional thematic components that are wrapped up in it. But I guess I kind of see that as just sort of thematic stuff floating, throughout the story. And I focus as a storyteller on the sort of mechanics of it all, just because I guess I'm the architect of the whole thing, and I have to focus on the blueprints and the building blocks of it all. And, if it emotionally resonates, then I'm very grateful for that. And I think that also has to do with the actors and their incredible talent and what they were able to bring to it.
Yeah. So let's talk about Frank for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the best performance ever gotten from someone in a bunny suit. In fact, I think he's in the audience right now.
Oh,
he's always lurking.
Yeah.
You had a background. You learned to draw. You were a visual artist very early
Mm-hmm.
in life, and I know you sort of you drew the sketches of Frank that became the costume. Where did this sort of demonic bunny concept come from? And also, what have you made about sort of its resonance? Just how impactful it's been.
Everyone read the script, and I remember we met with several different costume designers, and who ultimately didn't do the movie, but they brought in their sketches of what they thought the rabbit looked like. And the sketches, most of them brought in, there's only 2 or 3 of them. It just looked like an Easter bunny costume. It just literally looked like, what you would see. I just keep thinking of that photo of Donald Trump with the Easter bunny at the White House, but it just looked like a traditional.
You had a crystal ball.
Well, God, but I didn't see it that way at all. I'm like, it needs to be disturbing, and so I started doing all these sketches, and you see the one where with Mary McDonnell when she sees it on the calendar. That was one of the first ones I did, and I started showing it to everyone, and everyone was really freaked out by it. I'm like, well, it's supposed to be. It's not. It has to be this disturbing thing. And then I did the primary sketch, the frontal sketch that you see on the easel at the end, which became sort of like the iconic one that we built the 3D model out of. And we brought it into the sculptor, a guy named Dale Brady, who worked for Stan Winston, who was brought on by April Ferry, who became the costume designer. And he's like, this looks like a wolf or a coyote. I'm like, well, that's fine. It's like a hybrid of coyote and wolf, or coyote and rabbit maybe. And he's like, okay. And I think he just sort of went and made the mold, kind of not understanding what the point was or what it was supposed to be. And he made this beautiful mold, and then we did the rubber impression of it, and let's paint it like silver so it reflects the light, and let's do the eyes white and the teeth white. And then April did this beautiful costume. We could only afford one costume, 2 hero masks and 1 costume. And then it was day 2 or day 3 of shooting at Loyola High School. And it was the first time that the rabbit was going to be on set. And no one was like, what is this movie? What are we doing? And we had the James Duvall in the rabbit suit lit for the first time with like smoke. And it was one of the last shots of the night. And it was with Jake with the axe sleepwalking through the school. And when we lit the rabbit for the first time, everyone got really quiet on set. And Steven walked up and I get it, the rabbit now. And I think our gaffer was like, did I just take mushrooms? He was like, everyone felt like they were sort of tripping out. So it just sort of set the tone for what the movie was, and that it was supposed to be this disturbing, frightening thing. And so I don't know. I think I was just trying to make it scary, but the interesting part of it is that there's a lot of wolf and coyote mixed in with the original design. So yeah, there's a lot more there. Um,
And there's also a lot more to the kind of backstory of a lot that's going on here. There's a reference in the other cut of the movie to Watership Down, for example, which
mhm.
has a rabbit in it, and so your other version of this movie that you put out after the movie kind of found its audience on home video and stuff answers more questions. And
Mhm.
I wanted to ask you about that because we've got a smattering of people seeing this for the first time, some people who know it well, and then some people who have seen that version. So there's a couple of different entry points to Donnie Darko.
Mhm.
Now that 25 years have gone by, how do you sort of see the best way for people to experience this story?
I think it's better to watch the theatrical version. I did the extended kind of director's cut because there's just so much more narrative there, and I just wanted to have a longer alternate version out there that's just a deeper dive into the mythology and the sort of expanded world of the whole thing. And I just sort of did it just so that there was an alternative uh, version for people if they wanted to go there. I think the theatrical is the better entry point and probably better for sitting in a movie theater. I think the other version is sort of a stepping stone or a transition into something bigger that I kind of did as just a way of trying to lay the groundwork for more things. But and if there was ever a third version of the movie where I could really do some stuff at the very end, visual effects wise, that was just way too expensive with the plane exploding and the engine going through some of the CGI at the very end, which just drives me crazy because we had no money. But if there was a third version, it would probably lean a lot closer to the theatrical, you know, because I already know the mythology is just about something much bigger. But yeah, we never had enough money to do everything that I wanted to do, but it was also my first movie, and I got all these luxuries to direct this movie at 25 years old. So not complaining about any of that.
Well,
It's a lot.
before we open it up to questions, I want to ask you about that because one of the things that's fascinating with respect to your career is that this movie just keeps getting bigger. I
Yeah.
mean, it was notoriously not successful in theaters, but then found its audience in DVD and has been re-released many times. Most recently, you got it released in Mexico for the first time earlier this year, which was really cool how successful it was there.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing to see different generations of people that have discovered this movie over time. What has that taught you as an artist about just the duration necessary for work like this to actually get discovered by the world?
Um, I think for me, it's just sort of realizing that longevity is what matters the most. Um, when you make a movie, when you're the writer and director, and it's really like your whole body and consciousness is being put into it. It's not just like you come in and work for 8 months and then hand it over to the studio and you kind of walk away from it. There's some filmmakers that it's just a for hire job. With me, that I put everything I have into it. It consumes a lot of my life, and I have to live with it forever. I also have to watch it like 50 times before anyone else sees it, and so I'm like, I just want to make sure it's holding up for like the long haul, that it's gonna stand the test of time. And part of that is that from my point of view, the narrative, that you can keep discovering things in it as you experience it over and over again. The problem with that is you don't maybe understand everything in the first viewing, and the movie doesn't test well. It doesn't get good audience scores. The studio gets really freaked out. They don't know how to market it. It's impenetrable. It's unmarketable. It's all these adjectives that you don't want associated with your movie when you're trying to sell it. So it doesn't make things easy, but I found that it really helps for longevity. So I guess what I've learned is if you can just sort of cultivate that about your art and know that you can build in an audience, in the way I've been trying to manage everything moving forward for longevity, is that if I can keep trying to make these kinds of movies, but now that I have an audience around the world who knows, okay, it's one of my movies, we know we have to kind of take a moment, right? And that if we don't quite understand everything on the first viewing, or it doesn't quite fit into, the marketing category that a studio wants, they can at least know, oh, well, I've done these other movies that sort of are their own sort of unique thing, this kind of complicated sci-fi thing. If I can just carve out that niche for myself and keep working in that space, that I'll be really satisfied as an artist. Maybe I won't at the end have made as many movies as I would have liked, but if I can make movies on my own terms in this space that I've carved out, that makes me feel like I'm being authentic to who I am and to the audience that likes what I do. So I guess it's just playing the long game and just trying to, stay the course. Also, just try to get more efficient as you get older. More efficient with your writing. A lot of my movies, like my third movie, has like 40 minutes of deleted scenes, which is just too many.
We should just show those here sometime.
God. Yeah, well, I mean,
The
there's
Box. You should all check it out if you haven't seen it.
10 minutes I'd like to put back into that movie that I think would make it more satisfying and actually more optimistic. But yeah, like I don't want to be doing that ever again, where I have 40 minutes of deleted. That's too much. It is nice to have that stuff for down the road, because you never know. Sometimes movies become something completely different. Like my second film was Southland Tales. It's now been 20 years. There's a whole new audience for that movie that just never existed. That there was, the turnaround on that movie. I never expected that to happen, because there was so much hostility and pushback when we went to that movie to Cannes in 2006. So
another one that was really ahead of its time.
Well, it's just, I don't know. And also part of why I've been so reluctant and careful about making another movie is because I want to have a hit. I want to have a theatrical hit. But I also want it to be satisfying, and I want it for the people who actually enjoyed and appreciated my first three movies. I want to satisfy that audience first and foremost, I don't want that audience to go see a new movie I made and feel like I just changed who I was, or did something for that I didn't put all my, blood, sweat, and tears into it, So
just to tag on to that, and then we'll open it up. How much more do you know about the Darko universe beyond what's contained in this movie?
Oh, a lot. Yeah, a lot. There's a lot going on. It's funny because when you watch the movie, there's so much obviously going on plot and narrative-wise, but there's these little things that you don't think anything of them when you see the movie, whether it's like a little line of dialogue or an image or a clue here and there. And I've just sort of, in the 25 years and sort of excavating, I'll say it, Easter eggs, to be cute, from the movie. I'm like finding these like things that were almost left behind, that I was like putting these clues in the movie when I was writing. Because I think when I wrote the script, there were things that I didn't understand at the time, but there was a meaning attached to it. So it was sort of like going back and excavating and finding meaning that's there. It was just sort of hidden, or it was buried, or it was like hidden in code or something. And so I don't know. I just taking ownership of it and taking sort of responsibility for the narrative and what it is, and trying to make sure that it's that everything has a reason, I guess. So, and that's been really satisfying and gratifying for me, as an artist, because I don't know. I also appreciate how much of an audience continues to show up for this thing. Just going down to Mexico was really thrilling, and half of the I say kids, they were adults, but at the junkets, the people interviewing me, like a lot of them were born in like 2003, 2005. Like they weren't even alive when the movie came out, and it was making me feel like an elderly senior citizen being interviewed by them. But they were engaged. Like they were really. That was really gratifying, to have someone who's, 24, 25 years old, still responding to this thing. It's crazy.
Any questions from the audience? We'll start with the hand over here. Just make sure to get the mic, because we record all this stuff.
Hi, I'm Kylie. I just want to say, huge fan of the movie. Seen it multiple times. And one of the biggest things that stood out to me, this is also something that came up in one of my classes in college, was the soundtrack for this film. And the songs that go along with it are so iconic. And some of these songs are crazy big songs. So I was wondering, as you mentioned earlier about budget constraints and things you were doing with like AI or like the effects that you could do back then that you can't do now. With those budget constraints, was there any song that you wish would have been in the film that you couldn't afford or that you couldn't get the rights to, or that was something that you really think back on? You're like, if I could only have gotten this song, because you've gotten great songs for it, but is there anything that you wish you could have gotten in there that wasn't there?
Um, well, in this version of the movie, there's one song that drives me nuts. It's when the Halloween party starts, we ran out of money, and there's this like generic death metal song playing that it was like when your music supervisor is like, "There's no more money. We got it's a Halloween party. Here's the death metal Joe song that costs $200. That's all we have." It's like that drives me crazy. But we literally were like scotch taping any of the because we had no money after they there was a really sad time where they were going to make me cut all the 80s music out. No distributor wanted the movie. No one would touch the movie. They were going to make me cut the whole Tears for Fears sequence out. The studio was like, get rid of it. Get rid of it. It's a music video. Cut it out. And it was like, so we had to hold on to the stuff that mattered, and we lost In Excess, which is the Echo and the Bunnymen works great at the beginning. If there was a third version of the movie, I would use Echo and the Bunnymen twice at the opening, and then in the director's cut, it's at the party. There's the all-night version when they're coming down the stairs. Like in the director's cut, I was able to get all the music in the Halloween party exactly how I wanted it. But we were really lucky, and it was Tears for Fears that hooked us up. Because we were right in that perfect time of like 2000 going into 2001, where very little people were trying to license music from the 80s, believe it or not. It just wasn't, we weren't quite there yet, and the sort of nostalgia trends of everything. And so, like, their phone wasn't ringing, and we were able to get Tears for Fears locked in, and I think that set like a favored nation's quote with the other musicians. The only other song we couldn't get, which I'm sort of, I guess, ambivalent about, was West End Girls during the dance sequence, and we replaced that with Duran Duran. So
Worked great too.
yeah.
Let's go over here. Hit the mic.
Hi, thank you so much for being here today. I have a bunch of my former students here with me. They're all in college now, but I wanted them to see Donnie Darko. I have one question about the bunny. You were talking about Watership Down, but I always thought it was a reference to the play and film Harvey and the acceptance of mental health, like accepting people where they were.
A lot of people have asked me that question, and sort of because of that, it honestly, I was aware of the Jimmy Stewart film. It never even crossed my mind ever that I was referencing it, and it was never even a thought that crossed my mind. It was literally the way I was thinking of it is I have this sort of ghost entity that is projecting into my protagonist, and there's a climax that happens on Halloween night. The Halloween costume needs to be evocative, and it needs to be frightening, and it needs to have this quality. And Watership Down was this massive book that we were taught by my ninth grade or eighth grade English teacher, and I knew I had Mrs. Pomeroy, Drew Barrymore's character, teaching, and that was in the longer version of the movie. She replaces the Destructors with Watership Down, and it was much more of a bigger part of the story. So it really was those plot elements in Watership Down. And then when everyone was bringing up the Jimmy Stewart film Harvey, I was like, oh. It was almost like maybe just a subconscious thing, or maybe rabbits have been in the ether of culture, and sometimes that just happens, and that's truly the honest answer. A very similar thing happened on my second film, Southland Tales, where I had a levitating ice cream truck at the end that levitates over downtown LA, and with the Sean William Scott and his doppelganger, with the handshake, and when I screened the movie for Moby, the composer, for the first time, he's like, "I love the Repo Man homage at the end. That's Repo Man." I'm like, "Oh, I've never seen Repo Man. Is there?" He's like, "There's a levitating police car over downtown LA. That's not an homage to Repo Man." I'm like, "No, I had no." It was like sometimes these things, they just happen, and
At least you're honest about it.
or I'm just not nearly film literate enough. I haven't seen enough movies, I guess.
Let's keep going. I want to make sure to get some folks in the back. So why don't we go to the back row there?
Thank you. Hello. So I've seen this a few times, and this time I found myself getting emotional at the end, but especially when I saw the end credits, because I had forgotten that Davy Chase was in this film, and unfortunately she passed away recently, and her work in this film and The Ring and like Lilo and Stitch and all this other stuff was very impactful to me in my generation, and her character, I feel, is a very pure and underrated part of this film, because I guess she kind of shows like there's the brightness and like happiness in the Darko family. It's not just, Donnie and his whole mental strife and whatever. So if you're open to sharing, I was just curious, like, what was your experience like crafting her performance as Samantha in this film and making her character like come to life and be such an important part of the story?
She was just a wonderful young actress. Obviously, like a prodigy, enormously gifted, and I just have all the memories of working with all the cast across the board. It was just a wonderful experience, and I have nothing but positive memories from that time and getting to work with everyone. And she was a very special talent, and that was just an enormously tragic situation, and I'm still processing all of that.
And of course, the movie's also a tribute to Patrick Swayze, who we lost.
We lost Patrick, and it was everyone who did the movie. The entire cast was there because they believed in me and they believed in the story. And when you're 25 years old and you're making a movie, I was working with so many experienced actors, and they all were taking a chance, on me, and the fact that I could do the job and that I could, pull this whole thing together. And, even with like Jenna Malone, who was maybe like 15 or 16 when we did the movie, I learned a lot from her. I learned a lot from, Jake, and these were all, I felt like they were so much more experienced than I was, because all these people had done multiple movies and TV. Like I was like in a lot of ways the least experienced person on that set. I had a film degree. I'd gone to USC, and I knew what I was doing visually, and I had a strong kind of vision for what I wanted, but I was the least experienced person probably on that entire movie set. Even Seth Rogen had done Freaks and Geeks. It was his first movie. So I just felt like I was really blessed with all of these actors. A lot of them were younger, at the very beginning of their careers, and I just learned a lot from them, and I learned a lot from their sort of openness, and just was very blessed and very grateful. And we also got to make the movie in Los Angeles. And when you get to make a movie in Los Angeles, you're in sort of a town filled with actors. There's no shortage of actors in LA. And literally down to like the extras, they're overqualified. You go and make a movie in like another city, you end up with some people who aren't as maybe qualified just because there isn't a depth of talent. But when you're in LA, it's like you're really blessed with like the best of the best, a deep bench of people. So we had that.
Let's go up here. Let's get the mic.
Hey, good evening. So I was about 18 when Donnie Darko came out. I was a senior in high school and in South Africa, and I watched the movie, and very quickly afterwards went on LimeWire, got Mad World on an MP3, and played it habitually for the next 6 months. This is an American story, and you've crafted something that's very specific to LA. But how do you create something that can reach across different cultures like that? Grab an 18-year-old. So much so that I'm sitting here 25 years later talking about your film.
Having a what was the question again? What was it like to?
How do you take such an American, very specific story in a time and place and make it resonate so deeply with people from different cultures?
I'm sorry, I
sort of universalize
yes.
it. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure I know how to answer that because I wrote it so specifically to my own experience, kind of growing up in the Virginia suburbs, and then I was sort of replicating this sort of dreamscape in Los Angeles. I honestly don't know why it connects around the world. It wasn't like a conscious decision that I didn't try to do that. I guess it just somehow connects. There's a universality to it. And I guess maybe the suburbs are more common across the world than I thought, in the sense that everyone is living in a different version of the suburbs, right? You know, you either grow up way out in the country or you grow up in a city. And there's different degrees of money, middle class, lower class, upper class. But then I guess there's a universality to all of that. And I guess people all over the world are just connecting to how specifically it's put together. That's the only way I know how to answer it. I don't know if I answered your question. It's just a hard one. Yeah. Very surprising. But you go to Mexico, and we were in Mexico City where we kind of did press for the movie. They opened it all over Latin America. And there's just enormous suburbs everywhere, the suburban landscape everywhere. And I guess there's just enough universality to the themes of the movie where it just connects all over the world. So I'm grateful for that.
Yes, right here in the front area.
Hi. Amazing film, obviously. But my question was, I guess, you said that you wrote this in 28 days, which is wild, first of all. But second of all, something I think often is that creativity is not a linear act. And it sounds like from what you've described, it's like these puzzle pieces almost, I mean, I guess at best came to you, almost like divine inspiration or something. And I wondered how much, like in the movie, you talked about the celestial energy forming this path. Did that like mirror your experience of the creative process of making the film as well? Or were you aware of that at the time? Have you thought about that in hindsight?
Yeah, the it all comes together in a really complex way. When you make a movie, when you're the writer director, you have to juggle so many things. When you're directing a movie, there's literally someone coming up and asking you a question every 10 seconds, and you have to have an answer. And you've got to take care of the actors, and you've got to make sure everyone knows what they're doing and they understand the story, and a complicated story. The Jake has to understand, what did Donnie do yesterday and where are we today? And you have to juggle so many things. And so you're also doing that with your narrative. And that's just, you can either choose to write really complex stories or just do something really simple. There's no right or wrong to that. I just try to do stuff that's really complicated. And it's funny, there's a funny story with the celestial fluid, as I like to call it. It all kind of came out of watching like the NFL. CBS chalkboard. I don't know if they call it that anymore, but growing up, like John Madden, or when they would pause the footage of the NFL game and they would draw the lines. So sort of like, hey, this guy's doing this and that, And I was like, that's sort of freezing time, and they're sort of saying where everyone's going to go, and that's where it came from. And this is another frustrating thing, that when we were in post on the movie, we couldn't license footage from the NFL because it was too expensive. I wanted to get real footage of like a broadcast, and the footage we end up getting is like it's not real. It's footage of like the Washington Redskins, and it's from NFL films. It's not from like a broadcast. So I was actually hoping to get like a real broadcast where they did the lines and stuff. It was too expensive. We couldn't license any, get any like proper clips licensing that I wanted for the movie. Like we got the George Bush and Dukakis debate, and stuff like that's really annoying and expensive to do, and we just had no money to do it. Like I wanted more real authentic 1988 TV stuff, but you know, can't
Take
get it all.
a hand in the hat right there.
Hello. I guess my question is, with a plot and character development that feels, in like the best way, ambiguous and up for interpretation, how was it directing the actors in that kind of landscape, I guess?
It's a real challenge because on this movie, I was so young. I was 25, and immediately you have to get through the first week. On any movie, you have to get through the first week because the first week of any movie makes or breaks everything. If you like fall way behind schedule or everyone's on different pages at the end of that first week, you're in trouble. If you make it to the end of the first week, you're on schedule, everyone's in the same rhythm, and the machine is moving, and it's well orchestrated, and the whole thing is operating in a good way. You're gonna make it. You might hit some rough waters, but the ship has left, and the plane has left is at cruising altitude, so to speak. So I think it was getting through that first week where the actors felt like, and you have your movie star, you have your lead, you have Jake, who's in basically almost every scene, and then you have the supporting players, and you have some actors who only come in for a few days. Like Noah Wyle only did 3 days on this movie, and so he was in and he was out. He understood his role, and then that's a wrap on Noah Wyle. We had Drew Barrymore for 5 shooting days, and because she was going to do a big Penny Marshall movie called Riding in Cars with Boys for Sony. And she was the producer who was bringing all the money to the movie, like in terms of her name was getting the financing. She was the biggest movie star who helped us raise the money to make the movie. So we had to shoot her out in those first 5 days. So you're aware of like the different actors, the ones who were there for the whole schedule versus the ones who are sort of just coming in to do something specific, and then that's a wrap. And Drew Barrymore on shooting day 5. So you have to just make sure each actor feels like they understand what they're doing. With my movies, I've already resigned to the fact that they have no fucking idea of the big picture because it's so complicated and it's so insane. And at the time, I'm so young, and none of this is proven, and they're just sort of taking a leap of faith that I have it all figured out, So I don't try to worry about selling them on my whole vision because I don't have time to try to do that, and I'm not going to be able to do that. It's not a good use of my time. So my advice is with each actor, just make sure they know their place in the whole big machine. They know exactly what they need to do, and then that's a wrap on Noah Wyle. That's a wrap on Drew Barrymore. That's a wrap on Patrick Swayze. That they just know exactly what they need to do. Then I've done my job, and they do a beautiful job, and they bring all their wonderful talent to it, as all the actors did. And then you just hope you can put the whole thing together, and when they show up at the premiere or the first cast and crew screening, that you feel like you've done them justice, and that they're proud of their work, and that that they feel like they don't regret doing the movie. So you want to make them proud because you feel like you're adopting. You're like in this sort of like artistic partnership where you only work with these people for a few days, but you're stuck with this work of art forever that's going to outlive any of us, and it's sort of like a marriage, that gets quickly annulled, but the evidence is there forever.
Well, I have to say, I know that this film found its audience on DVD at a particular moment in time, but it is really thrilling and rewarding for us to bring it back to the big screen where it belongs. So, Richard, thank you. Thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, guys.
Come back sometime.
Yes.
Keep telling stories.
Yes.
We'll be here for you.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to let everyone know we have another showtime in here, so we can't hang out here, but we do have a beautiful bar right up front. So come join us. If you buy Richard a drink, he might hang out longer. Thanks.